Chapter 5 is called Lightning Rod Ben. Benjamin Franklin leaned against the back door of the State House. His hand trembled as he pulled out his handkerchief. "Are you all right, sir?" Annie asked. "Fine. I'm fine," said Ben, wiping his face. "But I cannot be seen with you. It would be a disaster. We must move away from here." Jack and Annie started walking with Ben toward the front of the building. "But, sir, why would it be a disaster?" asked Annie. "All the delegates have sworn an oath of secrecy," said Ben. "I'm sorry to say they've already caught me saying a few things outside of our meetings." "An oath of secrecy?" said Jack. "Yes, we believe in freedom of the press," said Ben, "but we need to make a plan first. Not a word of our plan should be printed in the Gazette until we agree on a plan." "Oh, dear." "The Gazette?" said Jack. "Yes, the Pennsylvania Gazette, the very paper I once owned," said Ben. Oh, wait," said Annie. "We don't work for the Pennsylvania Gazette." "No?" said Ben. "But you said you were from the press." "Oh, I know, but we were talking about the Frog Creek News," Annie said. "It's our own little paper, mine and Jack's. We're the only ones who read it." "She's right," Jack said. "It's just a game we play. We pretend to be reporters from the Frog Creek News whenever we meet new people." Ben Franklin stopped walking. He looked back at Jack and Annie. His expression changed from worry to relief. Then he laughed. "I believe you," he said. "My goodness, your little game nearly gave me a heart attack." "I'm sorry," said Annie. "At least we got his attention," thought Jack. "So, where do you live?" Ben asked. "Frog Creek," said Jack. "It's miles away." "We're tourists," said Annie. "Our parents want us to study history." "Tourists? I'm afraid I do not know that word," said Ben. "Oh, well, you can also think of us as visiting scholars," said Jack. Emperor Marcus Aurelius of Rome had called them visiting scholars on their last adventure. Jack liked the sound of that. Ben seemed to like it too. His face brightened. "Ah, visiting scholars, and so young. That's delightful," he said. "Come, let us walk, scholars. I'll show you Philadelphia's free library." Ben started up Chestnut Street. He still used his walking stick, but now he had a little skip in his step. People waved cheerfully at Ben from wagons and carriages, and he waved back. He seemed to know everyone. "It's important for visiting scholars to see the very first public library in the colonies," Ben told Jack and Annie, "but I do apologize for the heat." "Don't worry, you didn't cause it," said Annie. Ben laughed. "I like your wit, my dear," he said. "I like yours too," said Annie. Ben stopped and pointed his walking stick at a brick building with high arched windows. "That's it, our library. I was the founder. Library members and visiting scholars can borrow books anytime." "That's great," said Jack. "It looks like a lot like our Frog Creek public," Annie began, but Jack stopped her with a quick shake of his head. He knew that there were hardly any public libraries in 1787. "Hey, Lightning Rod Ben!" a boy shouted from a passing wagon. "Hot enough for you?" Ben waved at the boy. "Why did he call you that?" said Annie. "I invented lightning rods," said Ben. "I'm surprised you don't know that." "There's one." He pointed to a long metal rod that rose up from the roof of the library. "The lightning hits the rod and then passes through a wire into the earth, right?" said Jack. "Exactly," said Ben. "It keeps the lightning from passing into the building and causing a fire," said Annie. "My word, you both are very bright," said Ben. He seemed happy and relaxed now. "As visiting scholars, what would you most like to learn about on your visit?" "You," Jack and Annie said together. "Oh my," Ben chuckled. "Well, perhaps I could tell you a bit about myself while we sit in the courtyard of my house. How does that sound?" Cool, said Jack. Cool indeed, said Ben. We will be much cooler under the shade of my mulberry tree. Chapter 6. Under the Mulberry Tree. Ben led Jack and Annie down Market Street. Pigs and chickens crossed their paths. Horse-drawn carts clattered over the dirty cobblestones. But the heat and smells didn't seem so bad now. We're here. Come along, said Ben. Jack and Annie followed Ben down the alley to his courtyard. Please sit, said Ben. He motioned to chairs under the shade of the mulberry tree. The same tree that hid the magic tree house. Ah, said Ben, sitting into his chair. Not much cooler here, though, is it? No, but it's nice, said Annie. So, you wish to learn more about me, said Ben. Ask me anything. Well, let's start with when you were a kid, said Annie. Ben laughed. Excellent starting place. When I was a baby goat, he said, my father made candles and soap, and I was one of 15 children. We were so poor. I had only 2 years of school. Then I had to go to work. Whoa! What did you do? Said Jack. I worked in my brother's printing office. At 17, I left Boston and came to Philadelphia all by myself. I started my own printing shop. Soon, I published a newspaper called the Pennsylvania Gazette. Then I created the first public library in North America, the one you just saw. I wrote and printed a best-selling yearly pamphlet called Poor Richard's Almanac. I started the first fire company in Philadelphia and the first post office. I invented the Franklin wood stove. I introduced cobblestones and street lamps in the city. I founded a college and a hospital. I grabbed electricity from the clouds in my famous kite experiment, and that led to my invention of the lightning rod. I supplied the army in the French and Indian War. I was elected to the Assembly of Pennsylvania. I was elected the first Postmaster General of all the colonies. I helped write the Declaration of Independence. I was the American representative to England, France, and Sweden. I negotiated a treaty with England, and I became governor of Pennsylvania. Ben stopped to catch his breath. Is that all? Said Annie. The three of them laughed. I knew I liked you, said Ben. But since you asked, there are a few more things I've done. For instance, I invented bifocals. By the way, you have very nice glasses, Jack. Thanks, said Jack. And I invented a new kind of ship's anchor, said Ben. I created a candle that makes a bright white light and lasts longer than other candles. I've written about waterspouts at sea and the origin of southern storms. I've kept journals about dolphins, crabs, and the moon. Wow, said Annie. There was silence for a moment. Oh, I almost forgot, said Ben. I've also studied ants and pigeons. They all laughed again. Then Ben sighed. I'm afraid I must stop there because I am growing quite tired of talking about myself. Well, what are you doing these days? Jack asked nervously. He knew Ben didn't want to talk about the meetings at the State House. But to Jack's surprise, Ben leaned forward in his chair. Can you keep a secret? He whispered. Yes, Jack and Annie whispered back. They leaned closer to him. I tell you this in absolute secrecy, said Ben. At the age of 81, I am a delegate to the Constitutional Convention, working to help frame a constitution for the United States. No, whispered Annie. Yes, whispered Ben. He sat back in his chair and grinned at them. So when will the new constitution be ready? Said Jack. That I do not know, said Ben. He sighed. He frowned. In truth, dear Jack and Annie, I don't know if it'll ever be ready. Why? What do you mean? Said Jack. The delegates disagree on so many things, said Ben. I worry about the stormy debates we have. He took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Honestly, right now, I myself do not plan to sign the document. You don't? Said Annie. You don't? Said Jack. Ben sighed again. He put his glasses back on and looked at them. No, children, he said, I fear I do not.